I am Brian Mays. Follow along on our adventures chasing all kinds of game in the heartland of America. Our passions run from the North Woods rivers all the way out to the wild and wide open prairies. We are untamed, and wild is all we chase. This is the Amazing Outdoors Podcast.
Oh, that's a ski, dude. That's a muskie.
There's one on the tree right there.
Oh, there goes another one. That's a good way to start the morning. I'm gonna drink and sip my beer quick.
What's going on, ladies and gents? Brian Mays back for another episode of the Amazing Outdoors Podcast. On today's episode, we catch up with Mike, the owner of Ugly Dog Hunting Company. He was gracious enough to have me down and do a little face-to-face interview. We chat a little bit about Garmin, Kansas, Minnesota, Pheasant Fest, a lot of different stuff, and it was awesome catching up with Mike. And gracious enough to give me the time just after Pheasant Fest. Everything's a little busy at that moment, trying to recollect thoughts, and I appreciate Mike graciously giving me the time, and for me and you, the listeners. Before I hit the roll button, I want to mention today's podcast sponsor, HW Launchers. If you're in the market for some bird launchers for the training season that we're about to hit or have already started in some parts of the country, head on over to hwlaunchers.com and tell Jeremiah you heard about his bird launchers here on the Amazing Outdoors Podcast. Quick mention, I will be out at the BHA Rendezvous in Minneapolis, April 18th through the 20th. Come by the Amazing Outdoors booth, introduce yourself, book a grouse hunt. I still have some dates available in early October and a couple dates around Halloween. So if you're in the market, give me a holler, 920-277-5750. On with the episode 80 with Mike from Ugly Dog Hunting Company. Mike, welcome back to the podcast, man. Last time you were on, I think you're still working for PF?
It was either PF or RGS, one of the two.
It was RGS. It was RGS. You've been at both.
I have.
Yeah.
I've gotten around a bit in the last few years. I don't know that that's a good thing, but here we are.
Yeah. Now the owner of Ugly Dog Hunting Company.
Yeah.
With not an ugly dog, but as you say, every dog can be an ugly dog.
Every dog can be an ugly dog. Absolutely. Well, and I have an ugly dog on the way, or I will. I just found out they're doing a breeding within the next week or two. So
you're gonna get a wire hair, huh?
Lord willing, there'll be a fuzzy dog on the string next fall.
So what qualifies as quote unquote like the ugly dog in the upland community? Is it any like wire hair, Griffon?
Yeah,
like,
I would say the wire haired breeds.
Yeah,
is what traditionally has been thought of as an ugly dog.
Sure.
So like you said, your German wire hairs, wire haired pointing Griffons. I think you could put in wire haired Vizslas. What is it? I know I always butcher this name. The Chessy Fosix, however you say those.
That's a new one to me.
The Slovakian rough-haired pointers.
I did actually do some training with one of those recently.
Yeah.
One of the guys that had contacted me for some pigeons that I had. Was like, oh yeah, and I'm like, well, I don't have any pigeons to sell, but you can come on out and I'll work with you on with my homers. And it was a kind of a pretty dog, not necessarily my style, but I was like, what the hell is that thing?
Yeah, you don't see very many of them.
No.
So I think the ugly dog piece, our logo is a wire hair. But as I've taken over the business and continue to look to grow, I really do say that every dog's an ugly dog, because really, while it is about the beard and having the face only a mother could love, it's more about the spirit, which is determined, maybe not the most stylish sometimes, but willing to get the job done and having a bit of gur to it. And which may then, as we ran this fall, we ran Ugly Dog Bingo, which includes, porcupines and skunks and possums and barbed wire and all of the things.
All the years I've ran in the Northwoods, man, I've been blessed to not have my dogs do it, but I was running an English pointer and an English setter for the guide season.
Yeah.
And we finally had that card pulled on us.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen on social media, do you know Jim Burris from the Bird Dog Society?
I vaguely know who he is.
So he has a poodle pointer, also an ugly dog breed. So they're at Pheasant Fest, and he lives in North Carolina. So he drove up. He's actually working on relocating, and so he drove up, went to Pheasant Fest with the dog, turned around, drove back, stopped in Wisconsin to run the dog, and did some shed hunting. Found a beautiful, I think it was a half of a side of an 8-pointer, and then that dog whacked a porcupine. I saw the picture. I mean, it was they had intubated him. It was a whole 9 yards. I mean, he got his money's worth on that one. I run, I don't know if you know who Good Going Kennels is over in Wisconsin, Jason Gooding. So I run a couple of his dogs during the guide season. He's been gracious enough to add to the string for me. And I had this happen, and I would try to pull quills, and this dog isn't my dog. And, so there's this battle and struggle going on, and she was not super comfortable with me doing it. Sure.
And it was a little porcupine. So not these big quills, they're little brittle quills. And she picked that thing up and shook her face. Oh. So I got a lot of them on the outside, but there was all those ones in the tongue, in the gums, in the roof of the mouth. And she just, I tried the whole, stick in the mouth and with the, rope around the back to hold it. And she just fought me the whole way.
Yeah.
Luckily, my client that was with me that day was a hand surgeon. And so he's helping me out, and he's wearing gloves. He's freaked out. He's going to get bit.
Sure.
And
you got to insure those hands.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And finally I just gave up. And I called Jason, and I'm like, man, what do you want me to do? And he's like, just bring her back. And I'm like 2 hours from you. Like,
sure.
I'm like, all right. And so I got in the truck and brought her back, and he looked at it, and he's got a ton of dogs. He's had a ton of dogs his whole life. So he treats things a little bit differently than your average gun dog guy does.
Sure.
Or pet owner. And he's like, I'll just take her into the vet tomorrow. I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, just let me know what I owe you.
Yeah. And
freaking, November went by, forgot to call him. He never called me. And then we got into the holidays, and then I've been busting my hump for, doing some side hustles here this last couple months. And finally I'm like, shit, he still hasn't got it. I got to get a hold of him.
Yeah.
So I called him yesterday on my way back from running the dogs, and I didn't need that bill. Sure. I was like, they pulled out quite a few quills, and, it was a per quill charge plus the sedation. Woo. And, it was starting to approach $500. And it's just, it's one of those things I dread. That, and there's a few other things I dread in the woods, like an eye getting poked out or something like that. But oh yeah, it's I hate porcupines.
Oh man,
I've killed everyone since.
See, the funny thing is, I'm not gonna say that I haven't partook in a good, dealing with a porcupine, but I try not to if I can. But at the same time, like, there are times where you got to deal with what's there. It's hard. I mean, I've had this conversation a lot with folks about risks. I was talking to a really good friend just yesterday. Pointing Dog Journal just had a big spread on wolves in the upper Midwest.
Yeah.
And, it's does it happen with bird dogs? Really rarely, but it's a risk, right?
It
Bears
is.
And barbed wire and porkies and skunks and fences and eyeballs and impale. Like, anytime you put a dog down, it's a risk. And so
especially dogs that are I was telling you about my problems with my young dog. She's a hard charging dog.
Well, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I
call her Boo Boo.
Yeah.
And it started because every time I turned around from opened up the fridge, she was there, and I was like, "Hey, Boo Boo," you know, like Yogi and Boo Boo. I got a picnic basket over here.
Oh yeah.
And then I started running her hard over the off season here, and every time I freaking bring her home, she's got a Boo Boo on her.
Oh yeah.
So it's been super fitting now, but it's just the inherent risk of running bird dogs, and running hound dogs or whatever.
Yeah. Even Mac this fall. I mean, and she runs, with some reckless abandon, and she's generally pretty good. I mean, she learned barbed wire quick early, but she's had a few staples. But this fall, I'm on a grouse cut and we're into a walk, and she comes across the road in front of me and cuts in the other side, and there's a bunch of like little spruce, and I like literally watched her turn, and the next thing I know, she yelps, and I'm like, and in my head I'm going, oh, she just hit a porcupine.
Yeah.
Great. And I'm like, here, and she comes over and she's fine, and I'm like, that's all right. Like you clearly did something, because you don't yelp like that. And this was probably a 2.5 hour walk. We're an hour into it. Do the whole walk. She hunts the whole time. No noticeable difference. We get to the truck, and she looks like she's damn near lame. I'm like, what's wrong with you? That's weird. Put her in the box. Go down the road to the next cut. I think it was a shorter walk, hunt. And so I think we were standing there, and I let her out of the box to go to the bathroom. And like, she could barely stand up. And now I'm like, oh no, like what? I looked you over, what's going on? And so I get her out of the kennel, and I'm trying to look at her, and she must have run chest first into something, and nothing impaled her, but I mean, it was like getting hit with a baseball bat, in the chest or something. I mean, and it was black and blue, and that short hair coat, you can see through it in parts, and black and blue, and like big hematoma, like right in her chest. And I'm like, what's going on, girl? So that, then in camp, she loves it, because she's laying, in my lap with ice on her chest and hanging out with the guys, and they're probably slipping beer to her every now and then, and and then that was right before South Dakota Pheasant opened.
Oh, sure.
So she knows we're talking about her. Here she comes. So South Dakota opens. So I'm like, man, like I don't know what to do. And I talked to a few different people, and they're like, if she's up and moving around, like, run her. If anything, it's going to help that hematoma go down. And I hunted her in South Dakota, and we were back to the races, but
you like
you never know. Yes, no, she's going to bother you the whole time now.
That's all right. I'm a short hair guy. Yeah, I a couple years ago had Rebel. Kind of same thing, but she was right next to me, and I, she kind of came around. Rebels loves to kind of. Yeah, especially when I got two dogs now, and she's very big as she's aged. She's become more methodical and slow working, and so oftentimes I'm like, "Come on, girl, let's go." Let's like there's not we already walked through there, and pheasant field I don't mind so much, because oftentimes roosters slip out behind you, but in the grouse woods, there's very rare do you have a flush that like you walk right by that spot and they don't flush out, and all of a sudden she kind of comes around right next to me about 5 yards and just yelps out of the middle of nowhere. And we finished out the walk and went back to camp, and I pulled her out of the box at night to feed her, and she just, her whole face was swollen and the bottom of her chin was all swollen up. Man, I thought for sure she got pegged in the mouth.
Sure.
And couldn't find anything. And I'm looking all over. There was a dentist there, at camp, and he looked at her and nothing. And for 2 days, she just all swollen up. And so I took her into the vet, and, they couldn't find anything. The x-ray and all this stuff. And swelling kind of went down, but she still had this freaking like softball on her chin. And finally, I'm like, all right, this has got to get taken care of. It's got to get lanced. There's fluid in there. So they lanced it and put a drain tube in and put her on antibiotics. Well, I don't know. I took the cone off her 5 days in, and of course, I turn around and boom, she rips that drain tube out. Sure. It's like, oh shit, go back in, they replace that drain tube. That went on for like 2 weeks. And finally I was just like, she was kind of coming up to me like, there's something wrong here. I could just kind of tell. So I kind of, started kind of feeling around in there. And I knew it was, still a little fluid. So I kind of put a little force on it. And I'll be damned if, half an inch piece of honeysuckle didn't come popping out. Should have seen her tail when that happened. I mean, she was just happy as can be that it was out, you know. And, but yeah, I mean, just the little things like that, you know, it's always a risk.
It is.
It's always a risk.
You never know.
And to be honest with you, sometimes, you know, there's not a lot the vet can do.
No,
you know?
I mean, I've been on my share of bad beats with dogs, and it's something that you hope never happens, but what I've come to, you know, in 13 years is you do this long enough times,
your card's going to
something's going to happen. You know, you mentioned the eye thing. I'll never forget a couple years ago, I was in Kansas, and my buddy of mine has a Brittany, American Brittany, and we're hunting this place that we love to hunt, and all of a sudden this Brittany name's Penny, she comes around and I look and she's like holding her eye like shut, and I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, Ed, you got to get over here now. And so we get over to her and we're looking, and like I'm talking like pencil diameter stick is in this dog's eye. Oh. And we're like won't open it, and we're trying to empty guns and put them down and get a hold of her, and we finally get a hold of her. And Ed is a paramedic and really, really well prepared. You know, I'm always grateful when I'm with him because he's always got his act together, like if things happen. And so but we're both kind of like, I don't know what to do. And we kind of get a hold of her and we go to stabilize her face, and it falls out.
Oh no shit.
And she opens her eye and nothing is wrong.
Wow.
And we're like, what act of God just happened? She must have hit it just right where it hit the bridge of her nose and broke off, and just when she closed her eyes and tightened up, it just stuck there.
Yeah.
But we thought for sure that sucker was buried in there.
That, honestly, with how hard my dogs run, it's something that it's always on my mind in the woods. Mm-hmm. It's always on my mind, more than wolves, more than porcupines. Yeah, it's what kind of shit are they going to run into and get impaled? Mm-hmm. It's just, it's the nature of running in the grouse woods, unfortunately, especially in, young aspen cuts where you got all the slash left over. And this past year, man, I mean, that's where the birds were. So it was like I was going into stuff that I would normally not, death sentence kind of shit for a dog. And I mean, how can you not go in there when you're moving 20 birds?
There's a bunch of birds around.
In a 100-acre cut,
and they want to be there too. I mean, they want to go where the birds are, and that's part of the deal of having them is they're going to go find them.
Yeah. So why don't you give the listeners, I'm sure they've heard of you, but you got kind of a new face to the brand, and why don't you give a little history on kind of where Ugly Dog was and kind of bring us up to where you're at today.
Yeah. So Ugly Dog Hunting is a supply shop for basically bird hunting and dog training gear. Anything from your collar and brass ID tags to.
Thanks for the Garmin collar, by the way.
You're welcome. Very welcome. From your basic collars to Garmin equipment. I mean, we're sitting. My whole spiel is laid out on the table. I just got back from Pheasant Fest, so I was organizing everything. To some hunting gear, chaps and shirts and branded stuff. And kennel equipment. If you need it for a bird dog, we're trying to retail it. And so it started in 2000 as a catalog company. It's the brainchild of Terry Wilson and Nancy Anisfield, two great folks that are super steeped in
where were they?
So they're based out of northern Vermont. Okay. Outside Burlington, and really just great bird dog people. Big hunters that so Nancy served for a long period of time on Pheasants Forever's board. Terry still serves on Rough Grouse Society's board, both really involved in NAVDA. Nancy has been super involved in the NAVDA magazine, and Terry is currently sits on the NAVDA board as the vice president. So really steeped in that game. And they when they started it at the time, Terry had a wire hair and And so, going off that ugly dog theme, that's what they called it. They literally, named, they joked that Scrub was the first CEO of the business, and that's where they took it. And Nancy,
was that the name of the dog?
Scrub, yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. That's a great name.
And so, Nancy is a great writer and a great photographer. And so they leveraged that into the catalog and really built a following off of that, with the sort of ugly dog style. It's quirky, it's funny. I have sort of expanded on their style, if you will, with the business to say, like, this is serious gear for serious bird hunters and dog trainers and are sometimes silly dogs. And so, because they're really serious and they also do really stupid things too. And so, they ran the business, very successfully for a number of years. And as they got older, I got to know them through NAVDA, and Terry and I are both judges. And so we would see each other every now and then and spend a couple days together evaluating dogs. And when you're walking along, you get to talking about all sorts of things. And so I would always check in on the business. I started with a wire hair too. So when I got into bird dogs, I had a wire hair, and it really, I came to know it. I still remember this. My mother got me an ugly dog t-shirt for Christmas.
Really?
And that was really my introduction to the brand and the business. And so, through getting to know him and in life, I've always wanted to work for myself at some point. And really, I wish I could tell you what possessed me, but I called him up out of the blue one day and went, I know you've talked about like getting older and wanting to sell the business someday, or potentially wanting to sell it. Like, would you talk about it? And here we are. Because
timing was right for that conversation. Huh?
Yeah, they were getting older and wanted to spend more time hunting and hanging out, and here we are.
Yeah, nice, man. Just you mentioned chaps, and I'm in the market for a pair of chaps.
Sure.
Filson isn't making those anymore here in the
really?
States. From what I understand,
in the States, okay.
Yeah, I think they're made in like Indonesia or something like that, and it's been that way for a little while now. I happen to still have a home real close to where the only Filson outlet is in the country. And, occasionally they have cheaper pairs of chaps, but as I've gotten into the guiding scene a little bit more and spending 100+ days a year out in the field,
sure,
dude, they just don't last.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about $110, $120 piece of clothing,
sure,
it only makes it one season.
Yeah,
it forces you to start looking. So what kind of are you carrying, like Orvis or or what kind of brands in that chap space are you carrying?
Yeah,
right
that's a great question. So when folks listen to this in the next week or two, they won't be on our website, but we recently did add Orvis to our product offering, and so we're going to be carrying that going here, full throttle in the summer and the fall, which will be great. There's a lot of those products personally that I really believe in and have used and abused over the years, and so that will definitely be things that we're adding. We carry your Boit wax chap, so it's like a waxed canvas,
similar to
not as heavy duty as a tin cloth. It's a thinner, lighter material, but really that's better more for your more arid climate, things like that. I would say probably the most comparable chap that we have is the Huntsmith chaps.
Okay.
And those are thick and heavy duty. I believe they're made in the United States too.
Yeah.
The challenge with that is price point reflects that. It's about $160, $180 pair of chaps.
Yeah, it's kind of getting up there to the Frost River kind of type. But I like to support my U.S. companies that are willing to go through that effort of keeping that product here, because it's tough to do.
Oh, absolutely. And then we also sell a product called Snake Armor.
Okay.
And so they do chaps. They do chaps and dog vests.
Oh, really?
And actually they do pants too. And it's made out of a proprietary nylon that is bite resistant,
like
for
a
snakes.
Cordera, similar to a Cordera.
Yeah, but it's a lighter weight, so that it a bit more breathable and things like that. Those are really good too.
You gonna carry any Dans?
I was in my head going, that is where, in terms of price point meets durability, the Dans or Stone Creek style chaps.
One I've heard of, yeah.
So that is that more denier nylon.
Yeah.
Those are really, really good too. And so if you're in the market for chaps and don't want to get them from me, at least right now, those would be some to look at.
Yeah.
As well. The manufacturing thing, and even as we're talking, and this is my approach to business, is like, all right, so even is there opportunity for us to manufacture our own at some point? And I hadn't considered that, but I'm sitting here coming off of, I had a meeting with a textile manufacturer this morning about some things, and so now I'm like, well, I wonder if I should bring a pair of chaps into them and go, what would this cost to spin up?
Yeah. I mean, some guys really like them, some guys don't. I've kind of waffled back and forth myself in years. I have a great connection with Jason out at Upland Outfitters and his pants. Love them.
You've used those?
Oh yeah. And dude, I beat the crap out of them. Both pairs that I have, I've ran in the grouse woods all over the country, 100 days a year, like, and training and everything. I wear them casually too, and they're still rocking.
Nice.
They're great pants.
Yeah.
I don't know how long, he's a good dude, but, he wasn't at Pheasant Fest this year. And, I know that he was a little disheartened because, it's all he really does. And, all the big names have come out now with, Chief came out with a pair of pants in Final Rise last year at Pheasant Fest, and, Pike Gear and, Cooey, and it's a competitive textile. Clothing's a very competitive market.
Clothing is tough. I mean, it is. Well, and I mean, it's tough, especially because that's just you just named all your smaller stuff, but then you're competing with Orvis that has 4 or 5 different types of pants. You're like and so I'm a gear nut, and this is where I have to think about it. Like, do I have chaps? Yeah, I have the pair of Stone Creeks that I started with 12, 13 years ago. I barely wear chaps now. I wear First Light Sawbucks, and I love them, but I beat the hell out of them. Yeah. Right. And everybody is different. And I there's probably other applications for you guiding, to be able to wear what you want, especially while you're driving around and those types of things, is to and from and picking up clients, and, and be able to throw your chaps on. There's a differentiator there.
I just wear them from sun up to sundown.
I don't blame you. But it's hard. I would be really interested to chat with him to hear about his journey, because I think about, like you mentioned, like Final Rise. I'm like, man, and I didn't look super closely at him, but I'm like, when we at P-Fest, but like, are they still making a bunch of pants, or is it going well? To be honest with you,
I didn't spend much time in the Final Rise, but you were way closer to them.
Yeah, but the hard part with P-Fest, I didn't get to move around.
Oh, I didn't really either. We had Friday, I had to work the booth all day long, and Saturday, we had another gentleman show up, but I wanted to give him some time.
Sure.
I had to get home on Saturday night, otherwise one of my dogs was probably going to get murdered. So, it was just one of those situations. But
I wonder how how many are going to stay in that clothing space, because it's tough. I mean, it's a lot of inventory, it's a lot of fabric.
When you're putting a bunch of money up to get that stuff made before you even see a net ROI on
100%, right? And,
just like anything, any product manufacturing, but especially when you're making those things here in the U.S. I mean, you're using Jason's using U.S. textiles, spinning them up here in the U.S.
Sure,
they're $100 and some odd pair of pants.
Yeah,
and, probably closer to 200, 160 or something like that. But
and it's hard. It's worth it, but at the same time, it becomes like how many people are going to buy them, right? Even if
how big's the total available market?
Well, correct. Yeah, I mean it's a challenge. I mean, I retail right now some of Game Hide's pants, for example, and this is where it's an interesting thing, right? So your First Light Sawbucks, or your Orvis pants, or your Pike pants, or your Kuyus, or Final Rise, or Upland, the price point is where it is because it's made in the U.S. It's super technical. There's been a ton of thought and a ton of research, and they're all great.
Well, and they all have kind of a direct to consumer market,
Sure.
a business model where, yourself, you try to bring on one of those, you have to add your margin
100%.
on there, and it puts you in a position where how do you compete unless you get a better price?
Yeah, well, and the stuff that I sell right now, is it the best thing on the market? Absolutely not. Is it affordable? 100%. But is it going to meet all of those technical aspects? No. I think though, you zoom out, I go back to like, there's a lot of things that we sell when I think about like, I'm just getting into this. Or the other thing I have to zoom out on a lot is like, who's the weekend warrior? Where they like 50, 60, $70 for a pair of pants is more than they want to spend, but they're going to get them because it checks a couple boxes because they hunt 2-3 weekends a year. And not everybody is like you and I that is like, well, if I can go hunting, I really don't. That's what I'm going to do versus every other responsibility I have in life.
Shit, I got 3 hours. I'm going to go hit the woods.
We're going to figure it out. Yeah. Not everybody gets to be like that. And so, for me, thinking about broad tent, that's important. At the same time, as a gearhead, I want to try to provide the best of the best, but like you said, a lot of those companies are DTC, and one of the things that I've loved about, so I got to know a lot of these folks working in fundraising for RGS and PF, but now being a business owner in the space, we all really take the approach of rising tide lifts all ships. Is there a little bit of competition in the space? Sure. At the same time, we all want to see each other be successful. I mean, coming off of Fest, like I had great conversations with Steve Snell from Gundog Supply to the gentleman that runs W Supply. That was really cool to see, really a more hound-based company be at Fest and selling stuff and trying to learn more about the bird dog market. And Buddy is the gentleman's name over there. I think Woodbury is his last name. That they're doing a ton of great stuff in the hound market, and really, and honestly, they're manufacturing some things and bringing products to market to make current things better. So really chatting with them and talking about how they're doing things and really having open, honest conversations is awesome. Because at the end of the day, we all want to make the best. We're all nutcases and want to make the best stuff. So if we can learn from each other, why not?
Yeah, slightly crazy for sure. The things we do for dogs and birds.
Amen.
So how was Pheasant Fest for you? I mean, it was a great event for me.
100%.
I got to raise some money for Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society, meet some really cool people. But it was Sioux Falls did it right.
If Sioux Falls showed up, Sioux Falls, it's underestimated. A lot of people wouldn't think that Sioux Falls, would be a destination, but I think particularly for Pheasants Forever, Sioux Falls in South Dakota understand the importance of pheasants as an economic driver and conservation as an economic driver. And so, people really showed up. They had, record-setting attendance, over 35,000 people.
Yep.
I mean, and it showed. I mean, especially Friday and Saturday was bonkers.
I couldn't believe how busy Friday was.
Yeah. I mean, normally it like tapers off, and it just didn't. It kept coming and coming.
Yeah, I mean, we were they had the 3 different kind of areas within halls, I guess you could say, and the Sharp-tail or Grouse Trail was kind of in the side, smaller room, and I can't tell you how many people came in on Saturday were like, we never made it over here. We didn't even know this site existed.
Sure.
And it was busy. So how many of those 35,000 people never stepped foot into that particular hall? And I just couldn't believe how busy it was.
Yeah, I mean
there were people from all over the country,
everywhere.
Wyoming, Montana. I mean those folks drove 12, 14, 16 hours to get there.
Yeah, I mean there was people from all over. For us, I mean the business had never been to Pheasant Fest, and so running blind. And for me, I've got a bit of the inside baseball, having worked for PF in the past and significantly worked those events. So I understand what it's like to be at a booth somewhat all day, but at the same time, it's different when, then I was doing more around life memberships and elite level memberships for PF and QF. This is my business and my product and inventory and all the things. And so it was wild. I would tell you that, the anxiety, if you will, of a business owner going into your first show is, no joke. At the same time, especially by the time Saturday, like middle of the day, I was able to take a bit of a breath. It was a really good show. There's definitely things that we can improve upon, and we'll be ready to have a really awesome booth space next year, and even at other shows, like Game Fair here coming up in Minnesota and a couple other places. So
you should look at BHA Rendezvous. They're doing
we'll be at Rendezvous.
Are you going to do it? Yeah,
we'll be at Rendezvous too.
I might have a booth there.
Awesome.
Might.
Good.
Or I might just be talking about grouse hunting. I don't know yet, but
we'll see.
I've got an invite to hang out at other people's booths too. But
awesome.
I'm good friends with Trevor Hubbs, who's the kind of Armed Forces Initiative guy.
Yeah. Yep.
And he was I had him on the podcast last night. And so he was kind of pimping me to
poking at you.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think Rendezvous is going to be great at the convention center. They're leaving Montana and coming out this way. And
which is the first time they've kind of come this far east.
Yeah.
And there's a pretty good upper Midwest, following and membership, so I'm kind of interested to see how it turns out for those guys.
Yeah, me too. So we'll be there, and so learning and growing. I mean, honestly, that's my biggest thing with the whole business is that every opportunity is an opportunity to learn and try to do more or do something different. And the rewards are there. I just got an email from a customer last night about how excited they were that we were there, and that it was clear based on our conversations that we're a bunch of bird hunters and really take the knowledge that we apply from our time of field into our products and how folks should use them and apply them. And so that gives you the feel good to keep going on some days on when you can't figure things out or it's a bad day.
Yeah, I really as a business owner, there are bad days.
100%.
And it's all that, usually it's the little moments of good that really overpower a lot of bad, because it's a struggle. I mean, it's a struggle running your own business. It's, I don't care. I mean, if you, even me, I do what I love all fall, but I have 10 months out of the year that I have to struggle to get to fall, because even if I'm booked every day, you start adding up gas bill, dog food bill, training,
porcupine bill,
and there ain't a whole lot left over. I mean, it funds the addiction, and eventually when I can scale and get a couple other guides and hopefully offer that all-inclusive lodging piece, then money will trickle in a little bit more. But man, looking at 5 and 10 year, 3 and 5 and 10 year plans, it's like, man, I hope we can get there. Sure. Yeah. So it's those little shining moments that keep you driving and keep you pushing.
Yeah, it is. There's I read a lot in the business space, and there's a lot of conversation about as an entrepreneur to have the sort of the undying faith, and at the same time the discipline to show up every day and do things. Do things knowing that the reward might not come now, but it'll come later. Yeah. And, and for me, I think about that a lot in the context of Ugly Dog. A lot of people have asked me, like, well, why would you do this and do it now? And for me, it's, especially coming off of Fest, it is really clear for me, that I look at what PF does and QF does and RGS and AWS and Wisconsin Sharptail and all these groups, I ended up where I am because I got a bird dog and I fell in love with conservation and wild places, and I wouldn't know those places without having a dog. Yeah. And candidly, like, I wouldn't have a business if there weren't wild birds on the landscape. Yep, and so
same here, man.
So for me, I look at it like, I want to grow this so that we can give back. I have a very dear friend who works in development at Pheasants Forever, and I sort of tell him, like, I can't wait till I get to the day where that when you've got something really cool, you can call me and go, hey man, like, we can go buy this crazy piece of property that's like got all this potential, and we're gonna protect it forever, and we're gonna be able to hunt it all the time, and there's crazy birds in there, and or there will be when we can do the right work, and I can go, cool, let's write the check. Yeah. That's, for me, that's the goal. It's not about, becoming some big business conglomerate. It's more about, like, I want to have the means to make a difference on that and really really move the needle. You know, we're in Minnesota, right? Like with everything that PF can do in the state of Minnesota in terms of multiplying donations with grant money and everything, you know, to 40x a donation and put it into the ground.
Yeah,
is a big deal.
It is. We are blessed up here with that legacy fund to really be able to help make that conservation dollar really go quite a long ways. Although we still need more ground. There's a ton of pheasant hunters in this state, and
absolutely,
man, the Orange Army is out every weekend, and it's hard to carve out a little space for yourself some days.
It can be. Well, and this winter was hard, right? Because it was so warm. Yeah,
everybody wanted to hunt all winter.
Yeah, the weather didn't keep all the fair weather people home.
Now, I did take the door knocking fairly serious the last time I went out pheasant hunting for the year. And behold, first door I knocked on, got permission, and
there you go.
Holy cow, man. Just stacked, chock plumb full of birds. It was like after hunting, you know, public and seeing a few, getting a few, and, you know, getting a limit one day. Not that a limit's important, but, you know, you like to reward the dogs.
Yeah.
And when you miss as much as I do some days, you know, getting a limit, it means
sometimes
you shot pretty good.
Yeah, you need those opportunities.
The dogs did their work normally, and I'm the one that usually lets them down. But, to see that many birds come out of a slough, goes, you know, we're going to be heading into another really good year with as long as brood rearing season goes well. It'll be a really good
I think
year
it's going to be great. I mean, even leaving Fest, I had the dog with me, and so I got out of Sioux Falls, and I stopped within 45 minutes of Sioux Falls to run the dog and just like walk in silence and nature for a minute after being in the convention center with all those people.
I did it all day Sunday when I raced home.
And I moved, and it was a small patch of ground, and I must have moved like 15 birds, and I was like, nice. Oh, okay, like you know, they haven't been pressured. It's not hunting season, but I'm like, all right, we're in for it now. You know, we get a super wet spring, we'll see. But I think you know, if as long as we don't get like cold and wet, you know, spring, then I think we're in for a banner fall.
I think so as well. And, you know, you look at even outside of just pheasants, I'm still seeing a lot of grouse in the woods, and sharptails in Wisconsin are doing really well. Minnesota had great sharptail population this year up in Northwest. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for folks.
Yeah.
I think,
well, even like Iowa border hunts, you know, have really bounced back. And so
I heard a few in Minnesota too.
Allegedly. Maybe.
Yeah.
I can't comment on that.
I can't comment from firsthand experience, but I've asked a few people, and some people are kind of giving me like you know, I can't comment on that, and other people are very, very vocal about having seen some. I saw my first covey 2 seasons ago.
Okay.
In Minnesota, in an area that traditionally had them, but it was really wild. I mean, I was like, that was not, you know, a group of 15 pheasants.
No,
those were a lot smaller than pheasants, and they gave me the middle finger real quick on the way out. Yeah,
my first experience with them, I had just got back from Kansas, and this was a couple years ago, and I just got back from Kansas quail hunting. And these birds get up, and in my mind, I'm going, we don't have quail? What are those doing here? And then it clicked, like, oh, those are hunts in there. You know, at that point, they're 80 yards away and coasting into private property. And I'm like, well, so much for that opportunity.
Yeah, you know? And you know, it's one of those things where it's a true bonus bird, and,
100%.
and up here, and it's, you know, I'd love to see more of them. I don't know how we see more of them other than, you know, because they just require a totally different type of habitat than pheasants. You know, they're not a big blue stem bird. They would prefer your pretty much overgrazed pasture.
100%.
And then they really like small grains, and you just don't see wheat being planted around here. And,
not much, no.
So it's wish wheat prices would go up, at least in the Midwest here, because I think we'd see more birds, more hunts specifically. But you know, there's just, you get out to, you know, southwest Minnesota, and it's that ground's so fertile, and they can pull so many bushels of corn off, or soybeans. It's kind of become somewhat monoculture out there, and it just doesn't lend well for hunts.
Unfortunately not. Yeah. But the funny thing is, though, from a pheasant perspective, I learned this a couple of years ago. again, being down more in Kansas, the places that have wheat, wheat turns into great nesting cover for pheasants.
Oh yeah.
And so, the challenge then is, though, especially down there, they harvest it so early that all that cover goes away. So then where do the birds go? But that'd be interesting if we could get a little bit more up here.
Yeah. And it's, depending on how they cut it, I've seen it cut pretty high.
Sure.
It holds quail usually at that point. And there's pheasants in it too. But, man, does it rip apart dog paws.
It can. Yeah. Yep.
I had a buddy from Missouri that was up in Montana last year. And, I was pretty much sticking to the grasslands. Like I was removing enough huns that I didn't feel like I had to go work wheat field edges. Like I was working more of the hills and stuff where sharptails traditionally are. And, I met up with him one night and, man, his dog was just beat to shit. I mean, paws are just raw. And I'm like, dude, you have to put some boots on that dog, And I'm looking at my dogs going, I ran these dogs pretty hard. Like they're not like that.
Yeah.
So it's not one of my favorite covers to run. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, it can be a challenge.
So how was your hunting season, man? Did you do some traveling this year?
I did. Yeah. I started. Where did I start? Nebraska, I guess.
Oh, you're down in Nebraska this year, huh?
Yeah, I started. I went and chased chickens in Nebraska for a couple of days. The perks of being an avid judge, you get invited all over the place, and so I typically don't judge after the end of September. And but some friends asked me to come down to Nebraska to judge, and very very graciously they have access to some prime private chicken country, and so me and one of my best friends went down there. It's also a judge, went down there and chased chickens for a couple days, which is super fun. I mean, it's hot, but it's big country. The dogs roll, and the thing I like, I mean, I'm a native bird lover, and so that's a bird that's on that landscape and has carved out a living and really could exist there without any manipulation by us, and
probably
really
is better without manipulation.
Yeah, 100%. And so, but at the same time, the difference between chickens and Sharpies is like they're in the same cover, but the Sharpies, if there's some olive bushes or coulee or something, like they're going to gravitate to that, whereas like chickens are just where chickens are. I mean, you can't really look at it and go, yeah, they'll be over there. Like it's more like, let's go find them. So we had a great couple days. It was tough hunting, especially the first day, but I just love that country and the birds. Chickens have a special place in my heart, and
they're fantastic table.
They really are. I mean, I eat them all. Anybody that says that you can't eat sage grouse or sharptails or prairie chickens, I mean, you're cooking it wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Full stop. So we did that.
The chickens are my favorite out of those three.
Yeah. So I've never had Sharpie. Actually, I guess I can't speak to that, but it's just a dark breasted game bird. Cook it right.
Young sharptails, like it's. I mean, that might beat chickens depending on how. If you overcook them, not so much.
Sure.
But, an old sharptail, you can kind of tell a little bit.
Okay.
But man, I fell in love with. I mounted the first chicken I got.
Gotcha.
And I looked at that thing for like 2 years.
Nice.
And then I finally shot one and I ate it. And I'm just like, I'm glad I got that thing mounted already.
Sure.
Because I'm going to enjoy the hell out of every one of them I shoot from the rest of my life.
Yeah. Nice. So from there, I mean, we went right into grouse season. I helped with RGS's grouse camp in Wisconsin, which was super fun.
Yeah, I couldn't make it up there this year.
Yeah, it was good. It was wet. I mean, it poured on us the first day. And then my buddies and I that I hunt with really extensively, we have a grouse camp. So I did 2 weekends of that. I snuck in a couple days in South Dakota, a little bit after opener.
Did you hunt Minnesota at all for grouse?
For grouse?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did. Now that I think about it, I guided a bit up at Pine Ridge for a couple days and did some hunting up there. And then one of the guys that works for me on and off, he's a huge grouse hunter, and so if we could sneak away, we would get out. And so we did a lot of day trips from the cities, drive up north, hunt all day, drive back. These fantastic bird numbers. Just
Minnesota
utterly
was
fantastic
really off the
this
hook.
year. Yeah.
Not quite as good as Wisconsin, but Wisconsin still stayed strong. I mean,
Yeah.
we were 25 bird flushes on bad days.
Yeah, very competitive.
Which is good.
Yeah. So hunted South Dakota for opener, or just after opener, which was fun, with a college friend of mine. And then from there, spent a week in Kansas, mostly chasing quail, certainly some pheasants.
I didn't make it to Kansas this year. How were the quail numbers?
It's funny. We had a good trip. It's hard if we're gonna gauge it by how many birds the group shot. So I go with one of my very dear friends, Ed, and it's usually him and I, but this year he invited his childhood best friend and his son to come with us, and they'd never been out there. His friend Richard grew up bird hunting with him, but with work and whatnot, and they could never get away. And his son Braxton now has come of age; he's 14, and so they've always gone to grouse camp together. But they figured out a way to get him out of school and brought him to Kansas for a week.
Nice.
And so, it's hard to judge off of killed birds because there were so many walks where Ed and I didn't carry a gun.
Yeah.
Where we were, but it was more about putting them in birds. And we did well. I mean, I was happy with the amount of birds I brought home and the amount of birds we moved. There's probably one day where in a couple places that were our go-tos, we didn't find anything, but we've found more than enough in other places. And that the funny thing is, I have other friends that hunted similar areas maybe 2 weeks later, and they found nothing. So I think that area has been super droughty. And they've done a lot of emergency grazing, and so that has been a really big challenge. That emergency grazing really takes a lot of habitat off the landscape. And so, it's up or down. I think the drought doesn't help. I think the spotty rains make populations really wonky. But I wasn't driving home going, man, we didn't find anything. Ed and I in particular more left that trip being super stoked about putting them in as many birds as we did.
Yeah.
But a lot of people I know that went to Kansas this year struggled with quail. Just I think heat and drought and it was warm up here. It was even for us in Kansas. I mean, that first week of the season, you'd have to stop hunting by lunch, and then maybe you'd get an hour. We really talked a lot about.
So you went down in November.
In November, yeah. And we talked a lot about the amount of hunting time we lost to the heat. I mean, you're leaving the house at 7:00 and trying to be hunting as early as you can. But then, like I said, I mean, you got to stop around noon or you're going to burn all the dogs out.
Yeah.
And so, that was a challenge, but at the same time, I mean, in the times that we did hunt, we were in them.
Yeah. Yeah. I normally go every year to Kansas. I got a lot of friends in Kansas, and I had mixed reviews from all my locals down there.
Yeah.
And man, the grouse, I mean, when do you get to run till January 7th with barely any snow? And I ate up that kind of Kansas travel budget running back up to grouse cover as much as possible. And,
sure.
It compiled there in January. It was like, oh man, grouse season's over. There's 3 weeks left of Kansas quail. I'm like, I needed to be responsible here.
I hear you. Yep. Discretion is the better part of valor sometimes.
Well, and then I smucked a deer in November with my hunting truck, and I've been working on it, and just kind of like
that takes the wind out of your sails.
It does, yeah. I mean, I converted my Impala into. I took front seat out, back seat out.
Nice.
I could fit 3 rough kennels in it. I almost took off one day and went to Kansas. Yeah, I did, because I got plenty of buddies with trucks down there. If I could just get there, I knew I could hunt and navigate some of those nasty Kansas clay roads.
Yeah, you say that though. We have a dear friend that lived there. I just saw him at Fest, and I said, "Man, like we didn't hear anything from you, after Thanksgiving." And he was like, "Oh, let me show you my truck." And he had clients get stuck down a road, and so he went to go get them. And that road was so bad with the gradient, he literally slid sideways off the road. And had he not turned the wheel and turned into the ditch, he would have rolled his truck. And he literally just basically drove straight down an embankment into a river. Had to get the farmer to pull them out. I mean, it was those roads are no joke to mess with.
I almost did it 2 years ago down there. Like I just, and you're driving and it looks fine.
Yeah.
Because of all the dust down there. Like there's this little skim layer of dust on top of this nasty clay.
Yep.
And you hit it and there was a crown in the road.
Oh, yeah.
And I was right in the middle.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I just started veering left and I slammed on the brakes. And I mean, I was, couple inches from that grass and right next, there was a foot.
Yeah.
And then it went down 10 feet.
Yep.
And I would have, we had to get out 2 trucks,
Yep.
2 tow straps, pull it sideways, and then, it screwed up the whole afternoon.
I bet.
We did not get a chance to hunt. We pulled the truck out and sat there, and luckily my buddy Todd had a little bourbon in his truck.
Perfect.
We had a glass of bourbon after that and enjoyed the sunset.
Calm the nerves.
Yeah, a couple of years back, I had a truck die down there, and we were 20 miles from some town.
Oh.
And I got bird dogs, and we just got there too. We hunted all morning, found a shitload of birds.
Yep.
And we were like all high as can be, like, yeah, well, this is going to be a great week. And all of a sudden, coming up over a hill on our way back to town to check in, we were kind of scouting a little bit, and we're going to come back out. It died.
Oh no.
And thank God for the guy who came out to pick us up with the tow truck. He let dogs sit in the cab.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think I've told this story before, but sitting in the hotel room, just bummed. Shit,
Yep.
I don't have a truck. I just got here. Like, I don't even know how I'm going to get home. Like, I don't know what's wrong with my truck, but it ain't working. And my buddy just disappears. Like, all of a sudden, I noticed he was gone. And all of a sudden, 20 minutes later, the hotel door swings open. Throw the dogs in the truck. Let's go. And I'm like, what truck, man?
Yeah.
Just come on. Get off the bed. Let's go. I walk outside. He's got a freaking U-Haul pickup truck. He went down to Home Depot and rented one. And we threw the dog box in the back and loaded 3 dogs up. And we hunted out of that for 2 days. And then I ended up meeting a good friend down there who loaned us his Jeep. And it was just like
perfect.
Good people down there. And they got us out of a big pickle. But yeah, Kansas hasn't been super kind to me in vehicles.
It's it'll get you. Yeah, it's funny you say that. I just had my truck in the shop getting some work done, and they're like, "We replaced your air filter," and I was like, "Why'd you do that?" They're like, "What's on the floorboard of your passenger seat? You'll see." And I'm ashamed how bad it was. Oh man, it's
black, huh?
And then some. Just like the definition of caked. I'll have to reset my gas mileage to see how much better it is because of the airflow right now.
I guarantee it's going to be a little better.
Oh yeah. It was
maybe time to change the in-cabin filter too.
Oh, I did that before I did the oil filter or air filter for the engine. So yeah, I've learned to do that. And even still, the interior of my truck, especially this year because it was so hot, I made the windows down. So the whole inside of the truck is just nasty.
Yeah, it's that's why I have an 05 Yukon that I run, just because I've had some nice new trucks before, and they don't last very long and nice and new. And in my I'm a little abusive when it comes to vehicles, and
that's what a truck's for.
It is. I've said that for years. I know now that a brand new truck's not for me.
Very fair. Yep.
Give me something that's at least 10 years old and there isn't a lot of depreciation left on it.
Yep. That makes sense.
I'll keep a car just for running around and, yeah, it's just one of those things, man.
Nice.
So, you went down to Kansas. Where'd you finish out your season? Locally here? Or
yeah, I did. I went to Texas to deer hunt, and then
Texas to deer hunt, huh?
Yeah, I have a college friend down there that we go down and help them with their deer management, particularly their doe management on their lease. So that's always super fun. It's an excuse to get the band together and
what quadrant of Texas?
It's hill country. So basically between like Austin and Waco.
Okay.
So pretty country. And so we went down there. I wanted to sneak into Kansas off that trip, but I just had too much going on. And honestly, I took over the business in August, and I probably hunted too much this fall. And so by that time, and it was holidays, Christmas shopping season, and so I needed to get back. I thought about going back down in January and just didn't pan out. So I hunted a bunch around here. I really kind of wrapped up the season. I hunted New Year's Eve weekend for grouse and pheasants close to home, and was out with a buddy of mine and for grouse in Wisconsin, killed a bird with him, which was super special over his old pointer. And then I closed the season, on New Year's Eve by myself with the dog, and she did move a rooster, and then walking back to the truck after sunset, she points 3 hens, and so I'm like, well, that's a fitting end. And so after that, I've been running the dog, more locally, scouting. I'm not super familiar with a lot of the stuff around here, and so being newer to this particular area, and so it's been fun to really look on onX and find places and just go see what's what and drop pins. And man, I'll be after them next year. I think I'm coming up with too many spots, but it's been fun to get her a bunch of work and see what's out there and whatnot.
You'd be amazed at how much decent ground there is. Even just west of the Twin Cities, or just north, or we are truly blessed. We're in a sportsman's paradise.
We really are, and I think it's hard. Everybody's like, oh, there's no birds around. I'm like, man, there is. I mean, is it going to be? Are you going to go out and shoot a limit like you're in South Dakota in an hour and a half? I mean, and that said, go to South Dakota, you don't shoot in a limit in an hour and a half. I mean, a lot of places, if you get lucky, you might. But for me, part of the reason I love being here is I can go for a walk, I can move a bird.
Yep.
And maybe I'll shoot one. I don't need to shoot them all, but I want to go out and have the opportunity, and I know I can. And like you said, within an hour of the cities, there's a ton of cover. There's a ton of places. There's a ton of opportunity. It may not be watching 15, 20 birds to get out of a slough, but there's a couple around. So go have fun.
And if you're up for door knocking, I can guarantee
100%.
You're going to find some birds if there's good cover and you're nice to the landowner.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those places just don't get pressure.
No,
and it's the one dilemma we face in Minnesota is this one spot I've hunted it. I somehow end up there all the time.
Sure.
Like every year I end up down there, and I never want to end up there because it's one of those things where it's like, hey, you look at onX, and after guiding and all this other stuff, and it's December now, and it's like, okay, I just want to get out of the Northwoods for a little bit and watch my dogs run and let more than one dog out and just let the whole string out and run. And I don't know, I ended up there again, and as soon as I kind of got around the corner and was like, oh shit, it's this place again.
Yep.
And we go out, and I dropped all 3 dogs and started walking, and all of a sudden I heard something run up behind me, and I thought it was one of my dogs. And I look out in front, and I'm like, all 3 dogs are there. Turn around, there's freaking black lab right there, and I'm like, oh shit, and so I ended up kind of loading my dogs back up, and I'm looking on this dog. There's no collar. He's got a busted rope on his so I load the dog loaded right up in, and I started going around the local houses. And finally, the 4th spot, I found the land or dog owner, gave him back, and he goes, oh, he really likes to go out there and hunt with all the hunters. And I'm like, yeah, I've been seeing a lot of guys out. And he goes, well, you're like the 3rd or 4th guy to walk that piece of property today. And It was like noon.
Wow.
It was like, okay, this makes sense. This is why I just don't like coming to this particular spot.
Yeah.
It's pretty popular, I guess. Yep. There's a lot of ground there, and I've moved birds there, but yeah, you got to do your homework. You got to get out there early in Minnesota, especially on the weekends. And I get an opportunity to hunt during the week sometimes. I still see guys.
Oh yeah.
So I kind of like when season ends and it's like, okay, now we're into training season, because birds kind of tend to just be more cooperative.
They settle down a little bit. Yeah. They're still spooky. I mean, the last one of the last places I went and ran, I mean, the amount of birds I saw running way out front, I was like, man, you're still got the bag of tricks. You haven't forgot. I was out at a pretty highly pressured spot, pretty close to the cities, last week, right before Fest. And Luna slams on point, and
I was walking a kind of a deer trail through this CRP, and kind of, she slams on point a little bit behind me. I kind of turned around and let her go, relocate. And she went 5 feet and just slammed again. And she's pointing, she's standing on the deer trail that I was, pointing off the deer trail, 10 feet behind where I just came from. And I turned around, took 2 steps, and if that bird didn't get up 3 feet off the frickin' trail, I walked right by him.
Yep.
And, big old cock bird. And so, it's I don't think it's all relative, kind of. It is. It's what do you want out of it? And for me, it's never been. When I was a lot younger, it was about killing things. Now it's about the dogs and enjoying my time outside and getting a break from the hustle and bustle and just enjoying nature.
100%.
What else you want to chat about, man?
Man, that's a great question. What gear things do you want to know?
What's new in kind of the upland space? Is Garmin coming out? I mean, they came out with kind of the new new 300.
Yeah, I don't think anything new is coming out as far as I know. I think the big thing is, so they came out with the 300 or the 300i. The difference there being the inReach capability or not. The big difference between
that 300i does inReach. Huh?
It does. That's what the I is for. So it's if you want the inReach capability and for folks that don't know, the inReach is basically satellite texting. So it's a subscription-based service that you could do right through the handheld to let folks know where you are and don't need any reception. It's all satellite-based. Is a really neat feature, especially for the folks that might do some camping or hiking or really off-grid stuff, whether you're with the dog or not. That handheld and having that opportunity, and it's subscription based, and you can sign up for it 1 month, cancel it the next month. It's a pretty sweet gig. But
I could see some use for that up in the Northwoods. Yeah,
the 300. I mean, it's a sweet unit, but especially because A, the battery life, and B, the screen brightness. I mean, it's the AMOLED display, which is way different than your more pixelated, traditional option. And it is super bright, super easy to see in the sunlight and everything. And, the battery life is it's funny. I had my unit at Fest showing people some things, and somebody asked me something about battery life, and I was like, oh, let me check this. And I couldn't tell you the last time I charged that thing, and it's still at 100%. And so,
really?
So then you get into all the stats and all that type of stuff. And then really, I mean, the big thing is the TT25 collars for the 550 plus and the Alpha series. They're a smaller housing. The lights are bigger and brighter. You can change the color on them.
That was I hunted with a guy who had we were out in a pine stand on a rainy day, and the sun set kind of early, and we're running late. Later than I want to be in the woods. Yeah. And he flicked those lights on. I couldn't. I was blown away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a sweet. I mean, I've even used them like cleaning birds. I'll turn the lights on and hang them from my cap window.
Really?
Right, just to give me a little bit extra light on the tailgate. They're really, it's a great unit. The battery life is, again, super long. The Garmin discontinued the minis because they were having so many problems with them, and they designed the TT25 to really fit just about any dog. It still has the strap. They shortened it a little bit, but the big thing now is you can get what they call the zero length flex band, and so it basically takes that 6 inches of strap with the square, which is the GPS, and basically shortens that just to the square that you unscrew the strap and the old square, then put just this little square on it, and I mean you can neck that thing down to like 4 inches in diameter, and it gets it's real small, real fast. That's a pretty sweet opportunity. The other thing that you can do now too is you can get extended life batteries, and so you basically can pull the front off, which is the battery, and put the extended life on there. So it's a bit bigger of a unit, but that battery is like 120 hours or something. I mean, it'll go forever.
Oh, that'd be pretty nice, I'm sure, for like the hound guys.
Yeah, hound guys are using a ton of them, or folks that are running like big guide strings and lots of collars and whatnot. Those are pretty sweet. I'm trying to think what else from them. I mean, the watch game is really, the instinct is your bulletproof. I don't want to say, I guess it is from a watch perspective, a GPS dog track and watch. The instinct is sort of your base level, plus all the other stuff on it. The Phoenix Pros are great. And then their highest end is the Epics series, which really just does everything. And those are awesome. I run an Epics and it has the same screen as the 300. So it's super bright. And it's touch screen, so you can move everything around with the touch of a finger. That's really awesome.
Do you carry any other like Dogtra, DT? Or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we carry Dogtra. No DT. We have a handful of sport dog products, but I generally steer people more towards Dogtra and Garmin, just from a quality perspective and whatnot. I mean, even like your base model, your Sport Pro from Garmin is going to do anything you need it to do.
Yeah.
The biggest difference is, Dogtra is going to have that rheostat, so you get a little bit more fine tuning.
Yeah.
For correction level, which I like. And the other piece with Dogtra too is their bird launcher electronics are phenomenal. Garmin's are good, and their Garmin's mounting system is great. I'm not in love with that electronic push button remote. I like Dogtras for that. I'm trying to think what else. As I'm sitting here looking at the table, I have a really, really good friend that makes great custom leather stuff, and so he started messing around, and so he just came out with a 550 and 550 plus holster. It'll literally fit both units. You can put the unit in there and never take it out, because where the charging port is in the back, you put a big cutout for it. Nice. And there's a strap over the top that keeps it in there from falling out. And you basically just adjust the strap length, whether you've got a 550 plus or a regular 550. It's handmade, leather holster for $60. That is, to my knowledge, is a couple bucks cheaper than any other option out there, and any of the other options are a little bit more factory manufactured. They're not finished as well. I mean, he touches every one of them, stitches them all, finishes all the edges and things. And I've been running a prototype of his Alpha holster for 3 years, and it's one of my favorite pieces of gear. So if you're in the market for a holster, give us a shout.
An Alpha 100, the old school.
It fits all of them.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. So I didn't get a 300 until this year, and so my original one was running a 100, and when I got the 300, I was with him, and we were both like, man, I hope this fits. And I put it in there, and no problem at all. So the way he designs it, it's a sort of that convex shape, and on the inside, he purposely engineers it so that the inside has that same convex shape, so it presses into the unit and presses it into the back and holds it in. So it's he's an engineer by trade, and so he's really thoughtful about this, how he builds stuff. That's probably one of my favorite things, to bring to market. A, because of the functionality, and B, it's a buddy of mine that designed it. Otherwise, really, we were talking beforehand. I mean, the Ugly Dog was great. It had a broad spectrum of inventory, but it honestly had a lot more hunting things than training things. And so now I'm really working to expand our offerings. We're going into training season, so what do folks need? Yeah. We mentioned like bird launchers or zinger wingers, adding a bunch of different types of dummies for retriever training, and blank pistols, and all of that more traditional type of gear. And so really just
you're gonna have a kind of base model blank pistol, because that's a tough space, man.
It is a tough space.
I lost mine last fall.
Okay.
And I called up one of your competitors.
Sure.
because that's where I got it from originally. And they're like offer, like a $40 blank pistol, and it's a freaking blank pistol.
Sure.
Like I don't need this fancy $250 pistol.
Yeah. I need to look into that. Honestly, the only one we carry right now is the Alpha, which is the, it's bulletproof, but it's also $300.
Yeah.
So, that's like I was saying earlier, there's cost of entry is an access issue. And so we're committed to trying to figure out those price points.
Yeah. Cause, a lot of your average guy, what's he going to use it for? One or two kind of maybe seasons. I tend to carry mine more now just because whenever it's off season, I still like to fire the gun, and give those dogs, because it always just gives the dogs a little extra,
a little juice.
They enjoy hearing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, but all my dogs are broke now. And when I was working with a young pup, it was like, man, literally the first weekend I took her out on wild birds, the last spot I stopped, I put it in the water bottle holder and in my vest, got back to the truck, and I'm going, I must have missed putting it in there.
Oh, yeah.
And I went back to look for it.
Yep.
Didn't realize that I had lost it until I was about 20 minutes down the road. And I'm like, I didn't see that in the vest when I
yeah.
So I stopped, and I'm like, shit, I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
So I was going to be back 2 days later for a guide trip, and I swung in there right at the ass crack of dawn before I met my customers. And I mean, I kind of knew exactly where I dropped it.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it for the life of me.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, shit. And I started looking, and nobody had them in stock.
No,
nobody had the low end, kind of cheap starter pistol in stock. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't spend $200, $300 on a gun that doesn't fire a bullet.
Sure.
At this point, I might as well just buy a cheap revolver, in 22 caliber, and I can use whatever blank I want to, whatever size. But I ended up acquiring one, and I think it would be a good spot for you if you could get a lower end pistol
for sure. Yeah.
Especially for the average guy.
Yeah.
Your trainer who's doing it professionally, he's going to buy a higher end quality.
Sure. Yeah. Or trialing a ton. And
but
all of that.
how many guys of those are out there
in
comparison to, a guy who wants to gun break his own dog?
Sure. Yeah. So speaking of that, we just added shotgun blanks to inventory.
Nice.
So those are hard to come by. And
that was another option I was given to be able to buy a particular company. Like, you could buy some shotgun blanks. And I'm like, yeah, but
sure. And those aren't cheap either, unfortunately.
No, and then I got to carry a shotgun. You know how nice it is to carry a blank pistol?
Correct. Yeah. Cut down on that weight. I was telling you earlier, I just got the wet mutt kennel mats in, which are super nice, especially as we're going to summer. Dogs are gonna be wet and gross and swimming. And
it's not something I'm from.
So there's
so many products. In this
it's
space.
a closed cell foam mat that for your dog kennel, or crate, for your vehicle, and basically it's injection molded, has a slew of different colors, but they injection mold it, and the mold has holes every 2 to 3 inches in there. So basically, you take your dog that just swam and you put it in the kennel, and basically the idea is that they're not going to sit in the wet. Basically, it'll all sort of drain out underneath it. So you can let the dog out. They'll be a bit drier depending on how long your drive is. And then you can pull that kennel out, pull that mat out, hose the mat off, and dump the kennel out, and you're good to go.
Yeah, nice.
And it gets them up, and it's a closed cell foam. It's insulating. It's padding. Kind of checks all of your boxes.
And sizes. I mean, I run Ruffland kennels. So
so the Rufflands, depending on the size of Ruffland, you have to cut it to fit. But we'll be doing that as well. And so that, if anything, I actually like the cut to fit because it makes it a little bit more snug. Yeah. Kind of sets it in there. But I think the smalls are 28 by 18. I can't remember exactly what size the mediums are. The smalls fit most kennels.
Sure.
So those are pretty sweet. I've run those myself for over a year, and so I'm glad to add them to inventory.
Fairly spendy or reasonably priced?
$60.
Okay, so it's not a $100 kennel mat.
No,
it's hard to swallow.
It is. It's hard. Everybody is like, oh, like mine's indestructible, and I'm like, no dog bed. or kennel mat is indestructible. I mean, even if it's a cattle mat, I mean, if you get the right dog, that's determined.
I've got one.
You know, I mean,
She
whether
will
it's their
destroy
nails or
anything.
their teeth, they're gonna. I mean, I you know, my first wire hair chewed through the sides of 2 Rufflands.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, literally would like work the edges of the holes until she bent them in and could get purchase on them, and you know, she could fit her head through them. The last one she chewed through. So you know, it's a dog. I mean, they're gonna be hard on stuff. So speaking of Ruffland, so we're adding those to inventory. Actually, I'm probably gonna do a big order for them tomorrow.
Nice.
Carry Dakotas too. Haven't gone after the like Lucky Ducks. Might do those eventually. You know, it's perks of growing a business is trying to figure out where to put your inventory.
You're sitting on, you know, high dollar kennels like that.
Yeah,
inventory. That's a tough
money
spot.
and space.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a challenge. And then you know, but even like simple things like adding, you know, a variety of collars and colors, you know, so just trying to get away from your standard orange or black or brown and things. So we're always trying to add those. I'm actually making an order here soon for like your teal and your light blue and your purple and all of that. And then one of the probably the things I'm most excited about that we'll be coming out with more publicly here in the next few weeks is we got a laser engraver. So that allows us on a brass nameplate to be, you know, to have more room. So we're not necessarily as limited to characters across, as well as lines, as well as designs. So, you know, we're going to start playing with, you know, do you want a pheasant or a grouse on your dog's nameplate with, you know, your information, you know, what does that look like? You know, to give a bit more customization to folks. So we're really going to be starting to play around with that. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to see what people come up with. So we've got, I can't really talk about it yet, but we've got some creative ad campaigns coming out around that here in the next probably month or so that I think that folks will get a kick out of. Just have fun with it. You know, this again, Ugly Dog has been a more fun brand. You know, we're certainly very serious about our training and our hunting, and at the same time know that our dogs keep us humble, and so we need to bring some of that levity too.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love them, but they humble you.
Oh, absolutely. That's how I choose to look at it. I try not to use the word frustrated. I try to use humbling.
Yeah. One of my long-term returning customers, you know, he just loves one of my dogs, and I mean, he compliments me to the point that it humbles me. Sure. And I feel honored to be able to run that dog. You know. But I keep telling him, I'm like, you know, Bruce, you keep saying that she's gonna let you down one of these days, and it happened. It happened this past season. He came up for 2 days, and first day she was not on her game, and you know she made up for herself the second day. But I had, you know, sitting there talking to him that evening. I'm like, see, all that talk,
it's your fault.
All that talk. Oh man. Well, I don't know that I have anything else. I guess I'd like to give you the microphone to kind of reiterate one thing that you said in the beginning, and is that, and I don't know if it got on the podcast, but we were talking about before we started here, is that, you know, you're kind of called to the listeners here and customers of Ugly Dog that, you know, if people you're not seeing something on your website or in, you know, your catalog, you know, to kind of reach out and make that request. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Please do. I mean, we've talked about this a couple times. I have what I use and what I love, but at the same time, probably the biggest thing that I've had to learn is, you know, just because I use it and I really believe in it doesn't mean that there aren't other products out there that I should try or that other people really believe in or have found effective and or are interested in. And so as folks are on our website, if there's things that you don't see that you are interested in, give me a call, shoot me an email. You know, Mike@uglydoghunting.com is the fastest way to get a hold of me, or shoot me a DM on Instagram or any of our social channels. I encourage everybody to look us up and give us a follow, subscribe to our email newsletter too. But we're absolutely learning and growing. You know, we really, you know, we're bird hunters and dog trainers, and we want to be able to service, you know, bird hunters and dog trainers. And so we recognize that we might not know all of the things that are out there. So if you've got something cool or something that you're after that you don't see, holler at us so we can we can make sure that we add it to the inventory and tell people about it. That's probably the coolest thing for me, is that I find things that are really effective or that I believe in, and I get to share that with our customer base and constituents. Like my buddy's holsters, or I've talked a lot about like that Orvis Pro pullover, that thing's bulletproof. How to use Garmin's. One of the coolest things about being at Fest this weekend was having people come up and ask me Garmin questions, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? Will it do that? What setup do you run? And really getting to lean into that. Probably one of my favorite parts of every week, if you're not following us on Instagram, you should. Every Friday we do a Q&A in our stories, and that's user generated questions, so everybody kind of sends their stuff in, and that's super fun. There's certainly some personal stuff, like what am I dog training or what am I hunting, but then it can get much more technical into product and gear. And that for me is fun, because it gives me an opportunity to leverage expertise and opinion and really be honest with folks about what I feel like might be best. There's a lot of products out there. Folks can spend a ton of money. My goal is to help people spend their money in the right places to be the most effective. And also, if you're going to spend a fair amount of money, educate folks on how to get the most out of their gear, right? If you buy an Alpha 300 and a TT25, you're going to spend over $1,000. I perceive it to be our obligation to ensure you know how to get that $1,000 out of that product.
Yeah. Or even, if you're in the market for something like that, reach out.
Absolutely.
Because oftentimes, maybe you don't need that, but you can, talk to you about a 550 Pro.
I'll tell people till I'm blue in the face. I mean, most people don't need an Alpha 300. They need a Pro 550 Plus.
Yeah.
Now there's certainly use cases for the Alpha, or some people just want, the greatest thing, and that's cool too. But I'm more going to be, want to have the conversation around,
I think I see, there's two 550s there.
It's all of them. Yeah.
And only one Alpha.
The regular 550, the 550 Plus, and the Alpha are sitting over there. I've used them all. And so I want to help people figure out what's the best use for them, and have that conversation, because there's so much, like we've talked about, that you could spend money on. What do you want? What do you need? What's your budget? How do we help make that happen? We're about trying to find the intersection to have you go and have the best hunt possible. I mean, honestly, for most people, even if you had Alpha money, for most people, if you're running one dog and you don't hunt with a ton of other people, a Pro 550 Plus and a TT25 and a Garmin watch is the setup. That for the same amount of money, you're going to get all three of those things.
Yeah.
And you'll be rolling,
yeah.
Whereas like for me, I run the Alpha because all my buddies run Alphas, and it's 4 guys and 3 or 4 dogs, and we want to keep track of each other and know where we are, and that's really, really important for us.
That is a slick thing. I was actually running with a friend of mine, and he's like, "Do you want to sync my dog's collar to your Alpha?" And I'm like, "I didn't even think about that."
Oh yeah, and it'll show up on your watch too.
Yeah, well, the problem was this is a really slow, methodical dog.
Oh.
And so, I should have changed the refresh rate probably on there to 5 seconds instead. It was like, beep.
Yeah.
On point. Is Tika on point over there? No, she's just sniffing. I'm like, Tika's an ugly dog, too.
It happens.
She's a wire hair.
Yep.
But, it was, or he, I should say.
Yep.
Right, was it Tika? Yeah, it was. I can't remember now. I'd have to just look between the dogs.
But
they're not mine.
But like you're saying though, to be able to, for us, particularly in the woods, to leave and go, all right, if I'm on the edge and a bird flushes or something, the dog takes a big move, I'm in the woods. Now I have the confidence to go chase that or follow the dog and know that I'm going to find my buddies.
Yep.
Or even if a lot of times the 4 of us, 2 will go one way, 2 will go the other way.
Sure.
And we can keep tabs on each other to know, all right, they're turning back to the truck, we should head back to the truck.
Sure.
Or any number of scenarios, or we started talking about things that happen, dog whacks a porcupine or gets stuck or somebody trips and falls. I had you want to talk about insurance. I had a buddy, we pair Alphas, we're crossing a river, getting to a grouse cut, and he bumps it, falls off of his vest and into the river. And had we not had them paired together, we would have never found that handheld. It literally rolled down the river under a piece of boggy ground. And we, it's a bright orange, and we never would have saw it because I literally had to be like, no, it's right there. And he had to go up to his elbow and reach around under there and find it. That's worth the price of admission.
It's scary. You might not come back with all your fingers.
Maybe
Mr. Snapping Turtle land.
That's true. We didn't really think about that. But that goes a long way, right?
It does.
You know, to be able to go, oh, that is over there. You're even now, I know that if I'm running that, and I always keep it clipped to something, but God forbid it falls out of my vest and falls on the ground, I can call a buddy and go, hey, get over here, turn your alpha on, tell me where my unit is.
That is pretty nice. I definitely am waiting for the day that, the back falls off my alpha. It's just on the floor somewhere.
Sure.
I actually went to running it up on my game vest strap.
Your shoulder strap.
Yeah, I used to not. And I was like, it's going to affect the way I shoot. And then I did it one day, and I was like, this is just fine.
Yeah, I run mine high on my opposite shoulder.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Well, man, it's been a blast. I appreciate you having me down.
Absolutely.
To the podcast. You're always welcome.
Thank you.
Come back.
No, this was great.
If you have any big changes with Ugly Dog or launching some products,
I'll
bringing
keep you
out
posted.
a big supplier, more than welcome to pop in and
Perfect.
Do another show, man. I appreciate your hospitality. I appreciate you hand delivering my Garmin unit.
Absolutely.
And
if I can, I mean, that happens more than people think, if they're around southern Minnesota, and so we're based, for folks that don't know, we're based out of Northfield, Minnesota. So if folks are around or coming up I-35, feel free to give us a shout. You can pick stuff up or we'll meet you. I travel a fair bit too, both judging and going to places. And so I'm also big on, if I'm going to Pheasant Fest or I'm going to the NAVDA Invitational or judging somewhere, I'll put right in our email newsletter, hey, if you need something and I'm going to be there, put your order in and leave a note and I'll bring it with me.
Yeah. Well, and that's a nice personal touch.
Absolutely.
Back when I was doing a previous career, it was like if I could always hand deliver something to a customer, it built a relationship.
Absolutely.
And in today's world with, so much stuff bought on Amazon and all these other big conglomerate companies that really don't have a face behind them. They're just a brand.
Yeah.
It's a nice little piece to be able to do for people. And
absolutely.
It goes a long ways. People remember that.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm not going to buy my Garmin stuff anywhere else.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank
you. Hey, I needed clips for my charger because I had old clips. Boom. You got me those within like 2 days and got me out of a pickle. Yep. And then, I had that one TT15 left and it's like, I can't pass that deal up. I got a young pup who needs a new collar. So yeah. Folks don't know. I mean, if you've got the choice right now between the 15 and the 25,
they're discontinuing the 15 at the end of the year. I mean, if you're on a budget, and they're on sale, when they're on sale, take advantage of it. If you're looking at both of them, buy the 25. If you're looking at them full price, buy the 25 because the 15 is going away.
Yeah. Are they going to service that for a little bit?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they will for a period of time.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll, as long as it's within warranty period, it'll make good on them. But
I think my other
over
two
time,
are like 9 years old.
Yeah. I mean, my 15s are ancient.
Yeah.
But
they work.
While they still got them, so they'll service them.
Still hold a damn good charge.
Absolutely.
That's the one thing I really do love about Garmin. Their quality is there.
It really is, and I even had some issues this week where something happened, and I reached out to him.
I text you.
Yeah, you were one of them, and so I talked to my rep, and he was like, no. Call the hotline and tell them you're having issues, and they'll do some troubleshooting. And if it doesn't work, they'll ship it to you free of charge ASAP. So, and they're shipping super fast. I mean, even as a wholesaler, I get stuff like 2-3 days.
Yeah, and what the other thing is too. I mean, they have so much information on the web. Mm-hmm. Like I had text you, and I'm like, shit, I probably shouldn't have done that.
That's okay.
I'm like, I should probably just do a Google search, and I'm like, okay, I did that, and I was more, wondering too if this issue persists. Do I work with you for the warranty, or do I go right back to Garmin? And so it was kind of like, what's the channel, And I just Googled, hey, what my problem was with the collar, and boom, came right up.
Perfect.
And ran through the troubleshooting, which was super easy to understand.
Yeah.
And it fixed the issue.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's good. I had a guy with a 300 that just like started freezing on him, and so I walked him through like how to do a hard reset. And all set. So
it was funny because the day before I had my Alpha 100 had an issue.
Okay.
And I had to hard reset it.
Yep.
Taking the freaking battery out. And I'm like, it's still freaking doing this. It's not holding a charge. Like, what's going on? And, you know, for folks that don't know, same with the collars, if you hold the button down for 60 seconds, it reboots the system. And, both times for collar and unit.
Yeah, I mean, for Garmin stuff, I mean, the hard reset and a systems update, like a technology update through the web, you know, they fix 90% of your problems.
I probably need to update my
I was thinking about that too. I haven't updated anything, so I need to hook them up to the computer and let them run.
Yeah. Well, anyways, man, thanks a lot for having me down. It's been a pleasure chatting, and we'll have to try to get out in the woods.
We shall. Yeah. Hunting
now,
season can't come soon enough.
Now that you're not traveling all over PF and QF, hopefully you can make a little time.
Absolutely. I would love to.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being a loyal listener here at the Amazing Outdoors podcast. If you would like, subscribe, share, tell a friend. It all helps me grow this show and offer more content for you, the listener. October. I've got dates in the early part of the month. The middle part of the month is pretty much all booked up at this point. I've got a few dates around Halloween, openings in early November, and obviously early season if you're up in the North Woods. Want to battle a little bit of the cover, but the best bird numbers of the season are always right away at the beginning. Woodcock opens the second week of our season, and I have the opening of Woodcock available to be booked. So head on over to amazing.com and you can send a deposit and select some dates there, or you can just give me a holler, 920-277-5750. Come on up and hunt ruffed grouse and woodcock with me this fall. I have to mention, join your local conservation effort that helps make sure there's critters out in the woods for you to chase or out in the field. I'm Brian Mays. I'm out of here.
There's a woodcock.